Hello and welcome to In the Director's Chair on Guardian.co.uk. I'm Jason Solomons and I'm delighted to say that my guest on this edition of the show is none other than the American director Kathryn Bigelow, the author of such films as Near Dark, Point Break, K19, The Widowmaker, and her brilliant latest, The Hurt Locker, which details the knife-edge existence of a bomb disposal unit in Baghdad. Kathryn, welcome to In the Director's Chair. We haven't got you a director's chair, I'm afraid. Are you a director who plonks down her chair and shouts?
I tend never to use the chair or a trailer.
You just turn up.
Yeah.
And do it. Well, your films sort of have that kind of energy to them, I suppose. There's a sort of restlessness to them, and The Hurt Locker is just sort of another in that series. Was that the idea, to convey the tense and intensity of the existence of these fellows?
Well, I think the idea was to make the movie as realistic and authentic as possible. And we had the great benefit of Mark Boal's first-hand observation from his embed in Baghdad in 2004. And I think just the day in the life of a bomb tech in Baghdad at that time certainly is inherently dramatic. I mean, these are men who arguably have the most dangerous job in the world. They're walking toward what you and I and perhaps the rest of the world would run from.
Yeah.
What really attracted me was the psychology. You know, these are men who, in America certainly, it's a volunteer military, so these are men who are there by choice. And yet, it's an unimaginable courage that they must possess in order to do what they do on a daily basis, 10, 12, 15 times a day. And at the same time, they're saving lives, you know, hundreds, perhaps thousands of lives.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty admirable.
So what do you got?
The car has been parked illegally. The suspension is sagging. There's definitely something heavy in the trunk.
Interesting.
What's he doing?
I'm gonna die. I wanna die comfortable.
How many bombs have you disarmed?
873.
873. You're a wild man, you know that?
Oh, it's so bad. Our first time working together. What do you think?
I think us working together means I talk to you and you talk to me.
You going on a date, Sanborn?
My team leader is inspiring. He's gonna get me killed.
What's the best way to go about disarming one of these things?
The way you don't die, sir.
It's a very different aesthetic, this film, just in terms of the colour scheme, if you like, the kind of, you know, you're dealing with dust here and kind of buildings compared to, let's say, the film that you made before that, K19, The Widowmaker, which was subterranean, intense in its way, but it also dealt with the military and bravery of a certain sort. Do you look to change aesthetic? Let's say you were doing underwater, you've done kind of steel there. Do you look to sort of say, well, I need to open up this time, I need to kind of go for a different look?
Interesting. I mean, that's probably at work subconsciously. But what really drew me were these individuals, and to be able to, you know, shed some light on certainly a conflict, as I mentioned. That was a bit abstract, but and also the availability of first-hand observation. Mark Boal's embed was pretty profound.
Right.
So that's what really was exciting.
I mean, so let's go back to the K19, The Widowmaker, because that was, if you think about it, it's a change of pace for you, but again, you were dealing with men in military conflict as well. And I don't want to sort of say that you only look at men. Everyone says, "Oh, Kathryn Bigelow, she's great. She's like a woman."
Men in conflict. Give her that movie.
Yes, that's what she does. Everyone. And I go, there's a lot of films about men in conflict, I have to say. But those two, they're sort of examining heroism under the pressure of, I suppose, of politics that are far away from them. And I wonder what it was about that kind of interaction of men on the physical level and on the metaphysical level.
Well, I think certainly I'm drawn to provocative characters that find themselves in kind of very dangerous, if not epic, situations. And war is a great crucible. You know, it's defining, it's dehumanizing, it's tragic, and I think that it's you know, it's a incredibly versatile and sort of profound canvas on which to work.
Yeah, but you're not a political filmmaker, as has been pointed out several times. Are you more aesthetic than that?
I think that I think that if you mean avoiding politics, I avoid speeches in films, but not politics.
And finger pointing.
And finger pointing, exactly.
Yeah. Which is a good thing to avoid. But there is I wondered if you thought, because you've dealt with with war, and you end up with street violence as well in the brilliant Blue Steel, which
thank you.
I absolutely adored that movie. I thought Ron Silver was fantastic, and Jamie Lee Curtis too. There is a sort of, people say you avoid politics, but there is a sort of, it's what makes things turn around. Power makes these stories possible. You wouldn't have the people in Baghdad if it wasn't for the decisions of a group
they're
of...
there by virtue of politics.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I think what perhaps maybe people mean is it's not partisan. It's a non, it doesn't necessarily take a Republican or a Democratic position, literally. On the other hand, you can't find yourself in a conflict without politics. So I think that goes without saying.
I wanted to talk about one of the films that I suppose is your signature, has become a signature film, which is of course Point Break with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, it's an action film. It's incredibly it stands up to time brilliantly, but it's also a great California film. And I wondered. I know that you're a California girl. Ultimately, you were born there and grew up there. Is that
it's
something
inescapable? I guess.
Is there something about California that informs your aesthetic and and the way that you work?
I don't know. I mean, I think with each film, I certainly have. It's interesting to me to actually change the aesthetic to support the story. Like in the case of The Hurt Locker, I was very interested in keeping it repertorial, keeping it presentational, just sort of as a filmmaker, almost standing aside and letting the inherent drama of that particular profession reveal itself.
There is something about the outdoors. There's something about
elements,
about the elements that informs all of your work. Really, even in an urban setting, you seem to kind of treat that as a kind of just another location.
Well, I think maybe because I come from an art background, but just, working with an environment around you and keeping it very evocative and inviting and aspirational, even if it's painfully dangerous, it's still, there's something kind of seductive about it. And I think that's kind of goes hand in hand with the medium. What
did your art days? What did you take from your art days and kind of keep going when you're working in a large canvas? You go back to you start always, one goes back to basics and thinks, well, what sort of artist am I? Do you remember those days?
I don't think of it literally like that, but nonetheless, I think just compositionally, you're looking at kind of tension within the frame, tension within a canvas, balance, or lack of balance, asymmetry, so those kind of things come into play automatically.
Yeah.
I can't shut it out.
I remember those fantastic swirling helicopter shots of the Millennium Party in Strange Days,
right,
which is a wonderful movie of shapes and colours and sounds and different characters. And researching to speak to you, I found out that you remember that you're friends or influenced by one of my favourite artists, Richard Serra. Whose poster I have on my wall. I see it every day when I come down.
Yeah, I did a walk-on, a microscopic walk-on in a film of his called Prisoner's Dilemma.
Right.
And he's an incredible artist.
And in the Bilbao Museum, Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, you see the
tortellipses.
When you stand above them and look at the swirls and the
power,
shapes.
Yeah.
I mean, they look like your submarines from K19 and the shapes from Strange Days. So I wondered if if you take those shapes and that elemental massiveness with you.
I think somehow that never leaves you. It's like there's some theory in law called clean room theory where you can't unknow what you know. You can't unlearn what you have digested, I suppose, mentally. And that's part of it. That's just there with you as, I don't know, great reference.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
inspiration, constant inspiration.
Comes through as the knife edge and elemental kind of enormousness of The Hurt Locker, which I thought was a terrific film. Well, certainly one of the best I've seen about war for quite some time. So
thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for coming in the director's chair.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.